Peace, peace, peace. You're now tuned into the vault with your host Sharif Ali. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, wherever you are. Good day, good night, wherever you are in the world. Just want to go over some very important information today. A lot of people ask me this question a lot in consultations, and I even get this a lot on Facebook. So thank you all for that are tuning in live. Thank you everybody that's tuning in as well in the replay. I know that this is a critical episode because there are a lot of people that have LLCs and they have LLCs and they're classified still as a sole proprietor. So I just definitely wanted to address this. Um, just so we're gonna go ahead and start out as we always do, thanking the ancestors, universe, and the Creator for bringing us here to put us in a position to even go over this information. And so let's just do what we do best. When it comes to individuals understanding uh, why is they go out, they get a LLC or S corp or a C corp, but they're going out and getting it in their own personal name, and those are things that we don't recommend when you're tuning into the vault. That's why we have trustee training and things of that nature. But a lot of people, when they go out and they get these LLCs and S corps and C corps, they're still classified as a sole proprietorship. And the reason why they're classified as a sole proprietorship is because usually when you get into these type of entities, these are entities called pass-throughs. A lot of these entities are called pass-throughs. So when you are looking to find out how to utilize these entities properly, a lot of companies end up using these things as a basically a pass-through where they can have multiple members on the board, and things of that nature for income distribution purposes. So when a lot of people ask the question, well, why is it that why is it that my entity is still classified as a disregarded entity or even as a sole proprietor? Because when you walk into these entities, such as the LLC, you're going to be classed as a sole proprietor because you're the only quote unquote owner. And so it's very important to understand why is it that it's not that. So right now I'm going to go on the IRS website for you all and look of why it's called an actual sole proprietor. But the reason why it's considered a sole proprietor is because you pretty much own it by yourself and you're in the entity by yourself. So what you want to actually do is put yourself in a position where the entity can be looked at as a multiple member LLC, or something of that nature, which is very, very important. A lot of people don't understand exactly what is a sole proprietorship, but that basically means that the entity is owned by one person, is actually tied to your social. That's what they're pretty much saying in that specific case. So you want to make sure that you're in the proper situation when it comes to actually utilizing that situation. For example, people what's synonymous with sole proprietorship is going to be disregarded entity. And why is it considered a disregarded entity? Is because yes, on the state level, you filed it as a what is that? A corporation on the state level because it's a LLC. You file those on the state level. S corps you file on the state level. Corporations you file on the state level. Partnerships you file on the state level. But the reason why you don't actually get the classification of the entity as far as the S corp, C corp, or LLC on the federal level, because there's a state level and there's a federal level. On the federal level, you don't get you don't get that classification because the entity is considered a single member limited liability company. So it's very important for you to it's very important for you to put yourself in a position that is where you can take advantage of the LLC in that specific case. So this is a single member limited liability company. Now you got to remember, a LLC is a limited liability company. How are you limiting your liability if you're the owner still? Remember, at the vault we taught and we teach and trustee training to own nothing, control everything. So if you own something, you can be taxed for that particular entity. So when it comes to the single member LLC, that means you still own it. Okay, so let's just go ahead and read what the IRS says. I'm reading off the IRS website. I'm actually going to put this link right here for the single member LLCs. I'm actually going to put this link right here in the chat for individuals that want to go back. It's going to be in the comment section, and you all can look at that. So it's something for your edification. So let's go ahead and see what it says. The LLC is an entity created by state statute, so that means it's created on a state level. Okay, depending on the elections made by an LLC and the number of members, the LLC will treat the LLC either as a corporation or will treat it as a disregarded entity as part of the owner's tax return. So if you own the entity, you, especially you coming from your social security number, is going to be classified as a sole proprietorship. It means that it will be automatically classified as a disregarded entity. Okay, it says that LLC with only one member will be treated as a disregarded entity as separate from the owner of the income itself for tax purposes. It says, but the separate entity for purposes of self-employment tax or certain excise tax, unless it files Form 8832 and affirmatively elects to be treated as a corporation. Do you see right there how you are supposed to have the entity classified as an actual corporation? I will reread it again. It says unless it files Form 8832 and affirmatively elects to be treated as a corporation. So in that document, you are actually, which is something you're supposed to submit as an entrepreneur, as an LLC, when you have multiple members. That's why it's beneficial to have multiple members, and even just to have it elected to be treated as a corporation, where a lot of people don't know that. So that's something that's very, very important, to have it, at least have the entity on a federal level at least treated as an actually treated as a corporation. So let's go look at what would be considered corporate tax returns, because a lot of people don't understand a corporate tax return is an 1120. Okay, and I'm going to put that in the chat too as well, so you all can see that an 1120 is an actual tax form for corporations. It's for domestic corporations. So when individuals are sitting here wanting to know, how is it that my entity is not classified as an actual corporation, and why am I still filing 1120 tax returns? You're filing an 1120 tax return. I mean, you're filing a 1040 tax return for your corporation, and it's being classified as a disregarded entity because the entity has what? It has it's still considered a disregarded entity on the federal level. On the state level, it's considered a corporation, but on the federal level, it's actually considered a disregarded entity. So I put that in the link. I put the U.S. Corporation income tax return inside of the chat for individuals that are listening, so you all can see this basic information, that the reason why a lot of people end up getting taxed out of their entity and getting taxed as a corporation, I mean, getting taxed as a basically a glorified employee. If you're utilizing your LLC and it's still considered a sole proprietor, that means you own it, and that means that you're going to be taxed, basically double tax, because you're paying it as quote unquote self-employed, and you're basically, you're still filing 1040s in general, when in all actuality you could take advantage of fringe benefits, receive the benefits as a CEO or corporate executive, and then on the back end of that, actually having your entity be classified as a corporation on the federal level, which is going to be the 8832 form. Now, a lot of people, they're going through LegalZoom, and they're going through even basic public attorneys, and they might not ever tell you about the 8832. So, me, Sharif Ali, being an entrepreneur, I always encourage you all to go out and increase your knowledge base as an entrepreneur, have your entity classified in a proper perspective as a true corporation. And so you can go back to your lawyer within that tax year and say, hey, look, I need to have my entity classified where it's actually by the IRS recognize that it is a corporation, not as a 1040 tax return going on my personal taxes. Because once again, anything you own, you can actually be sued for and subject to a creditor's charge. So it's very important to put yourself in a position where you don't own anything, but you can control it. And one of those strategies is making sure your entity is classified as its own standalone entity, which is a corporation. So thank you everybody for listening live. This is just something, very whet your appetite for you all in the replay as well. If you would like to get more of an in-depth conversation with me, you can email me at hfrn.vault@gmail.com. If you would like to get into private trustee training to learn how to own nothing, control everything, feel free to do so. hfrn.vault@gmail.com. I look forward to serving you all. Once again, this is just a very important subject that a lot of people are missing out on, which is them filing 1040s instead of filing 1120s. And that is coming from not having your entity classified the proper way. And it comes from a simple document called the 8832. That's something you can take to your CPA or your tax attorney and say, look, particularly your tax attorney, and say, look, I need to make sure that this entity is set up properly, and I want to have it classified as a corporation, not as a sole proprietorship or a disregarded entity. So I hope this helps. I look forward to hearing from you. HFRN.vault@gmail.com. If you have any questions, feel free to type it into the chat. Otherwise, I thank you so much, and peace.